Hi, my name is Allison McCombs, and this is my video speech for my final paper plan for Discourse 200 with Professor Gomez.
For my final paper plan, I decided to go with the topic of communication patterns of men and women with technology. This means that I would be talking about the communication patterns with the evolution of technology, which means that we are able to hide our genders a little bit more while also expressing ourselves in a different way than we would normally face to face. So my argument is going to be men and women in society today are communicating in a more inclusive fashion because our technology allows us to. This relates to the textbook because the book explains how men and women communicate differently and how it can sometimes be hard for each gender to get their point across because others don't completely understand. And now technology is allowing us to better that. So why? I chose this because language is becoming more inclusive of men and women because their communication patterns are more understandable, and also there's more equality because, like one of my sources will describe, online gender is unknown, so there's less bias against genders. It also makes it a little bit less diverse, this technology and communicating through technology, because our patterns are merging. So men and women are becoming more alike with their communication patterns online than they do in person. I'm going to organize my paper. I'm thinking I'll start with the examples that were given from the textbook of the gender communication patterns, such as that women are more emotional than men and the men are less responsive than women, stuff like that. And then with the electronic communication information that I get from my scholarly sources, I'm going to explain the things that I find from there, such as we can hide our genders and that we express ourselves differently and that there's different platforms for us to use on the internet that we may speak differently on than we would face to face. And from each source that I have, so all 4 sources are going to have their own paragraph explaining a different branch of why this communication is different. So the sources I have found, my popular source is from Livestrong. It is a website, and it's an article on this website, and it's just mainly about the body language of men and women and how they differ, which is similar to what the textbook said, but the textbook didn't really include as much of the body language, and I think it's important to include the body language that we use to communicate because that's not online, so you don't get to see that. One of my scholarly sources was the impact of gender on electronic word-of-mouth communication, and that shows the language through electronic speaking, which it would be like texting, using social media, IMing, things like that, blogging. So I also think this is very important to include because we speak differently, and we are definitely more confident when we are speaking online when we're texting and things rather than if we were to upfront say something to somebody. So it's interesting to see how we can become more confident whenever we're using technology and not actually speaking face to face. Another one of my sources was the article titled Application of Text Mining Techniques. And that one just talks about how online gender cannot be identified most of the time, which shows more inclusion, which is what I was speaking about earlier when I explained why I chose this. And then another source would be the textbook. Obviously, from that I will be pulling the examples of men and women's communication patterns. So I hope that this helps wrap up my final paper plan. Thank you.